Well, Nun 2 is better than the original Nun, but is that good enough? Let's talk about it now. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and now that I've got this nightmare fuel done, I'm going to remove this because the Nun is a very, very scary monster. I'm going to talk to you about The Nun 2, the second movie in the Nun spin-off of the Conjuring franchise. The Conjuring franchise had a few spin-offs. It's had Annabelle, it's had La Llorona, it's had The Nun, which follows the exploits of Valak, this like demon nun that seemed to be just kind of like a side painting, and I think Conjuring 2 that then elevated into a main monster and then into its own spin-off franchise. Now, is this new entry in the Nun franchise worth your time, worth going to confession over? Well, my hot take is, look, I think you should probably pass on it. Look, it was better than the Nun. It was better than the original Nun. This one was just okay, but I still don't think it had a good enough story and a good enough villain to really make me recommend it. I really loved some things about it, but overall, I did not love this movie as much as I've loved other ones in the Conjuring franchise. And look, I love the Conjuring franchise. The Conjuring is my favorite horror movie of all time. The other ones are hit or miss for me, but generally I enjoyed them. I like La Llorona. I like some of the Annabelle movies, but the Nun series just doesn't do it for me, and this one didn't change that perception. So, that being said, I'm going to tell you a little more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't want to know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off when I get there. Before that, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, The Nun 2 follows everyone's favorite nun, everyone's favorite sister, not the evil nun, the good nun, Sister Irene, who was in the first Nun movie. She and another priest encountered Valak in this like secluded monastery. They faced her, they overcame, they won. Now we are transported into the future where a series of strange murders are happening, and wouldn't you know it, they call Sister Irene back as one of the only people who's ever experienced this type of a demon. The church wants her to investigate and possibly stop whatever's going on. She already performed one miracle, beating Valak and dying. Can she do it again? Well, you'll have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the sound. It's a really great sounding movie. It has a lot of like creepy horror notes. It has really good music for when like the tension is building up. It is just a really great soundtrack to help keep you on edge. And that is what you really want in a horror movie. You want something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. And this is no different. There definitely are some very scary moments, some very tense moments that go along with this new spiritual haunting. So, second thing I like the characters. I really like that some of them are back. We've got Sister Irene back, and we have Maurice back, who was in the original Nun movie. I liked both of them in there, and I like them both in here. It's fun to have that cast. Plus, you have a few new added characters that keep the mix fresh, that keep it fun, and each one feels very, very different. So I did like the overall cast. I like the sound. The last thing I liked where the practical effects were used. Like there were some pretty gory scenes, some pretty kind of bloody scenes that you'd expect in a horror movie, and they looked really great for the most part. Now I'll get into some of the CG stuff later in the review, but at least on the practical side, when they were used, they looked really, really good. So that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first and probably the most egregious, I didn't really like the nun. I don't really like her as a villain. She's not very interesting to me. She like doesn't talk. She just kind of smiles. She moves around. I couldn't really get a sense of like why she was doing this and also like what the extent of her powers were. It seems like they just kind of threw new powers out of her all the time. Some random stuff happened, some like over the top stuff happened. Some of it was scary, some of it was just silly. And I don't know, I just don't like the nun as a character. I love her creep factor when you see her picture everywhere, but when you actually have to interact with her, she's just not really that interesting to me. So, second thing I didn't love, I just didn't really love the story. I didn't really understand why this movie had to get made. I didn't really understand how this like fits into the Conjuring franchise. It seems like a complete throwaway. It seems like a complete unnecessary movie. The Nun felt like a completely unnecessary movie. The Nun 2 also feels unnecessary. Like I said, it's better than the first one. But in terms of like the grand scheme of things, the story didn't really advance the Conjuring franchise, and it also didn't really make a ton of sense overall. The third thing I didn't love as much, there are some pretty silly looking CG effects. There's not a ton of them. Overall, the movie's well shot and has some pretty decent effects, but there are some computer animated scenes. There's a fire scene. There's some scenes where like fangs appear and the characters look really ridiculous. There is one thing later in the movie that also looks really ridiculous. It's fine. It's well done CG, but it is definitely noticeable when compared against the practical effects. And sometimes it just looks silly and out of place in this overall world. And the last thing I didn't love as much, I just didn't really love the ending. It didn't really leave you with a very fulfilling ending. It kind of has a big build up and then just abruptly ends. I wanted something more. I wanted like some closure. It just didn't give you that. It feels like there's this really, really long build up. There's a big confrontation, and then boom, it's over. There's nothing else after. So, all that being said, The Nun 2 comes to theaters on September 8th, 2023. Like I said, I think you should probably pass on it. It is better than the original Nun. It is not a bad movie. It just really didn't do enough for me to like justify why it's there and really keep my interest throughout the movie. So I'm going to go into the ending now. If you don't want to know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off because there will be spoilers. All right, so in The Nun 2, you have a series of strange murders that all seem to be religious oriented. The movie starts with a big murder where this father gets killed by this demon entity. Now, is this demon the nun? Well, yes, they make it pretty clear at the start that the demon is the nun. There's really no mystery in this movie, which is another thing I didn't really love as much. You know who the villain is, and you know who the kind of like possessed person is right from the start. I wish there would have been a little bit more mystery throughout because they really kind of previewed it right at the beginning. As after this father's killed, he like is pulled up, his body's contorted, and then he like bursts into flames. You see Maurice, Frenchie from the original movie, walking down like a dark alley, and his shadow is a shadow of the nun, and then the nun shadow just kind of like sinks back into him, and there you go. You know who it is. You know who everything is. Now, this death and the other deaths related to it don't go unnoticed. The Vatican, or at least some church entity, calls in everyone's favorite original nun, Sister Irene, to go and investigate. Now, remember, in the original Nun, Sister Irene and a priest were both sent to investigate. They barely survived. The priest died. And you know what the church says? They're like, hey, you know what? You did it once. Let's just send you and no one else to go investigate this new series of heinous murders. I'm sure you'll be fine. Good luck. Not really the best plan, but luckily she's not alone. One of the more like rebellious nuns in Sister Irene's monastery, or I forget what they're called, in Sister Irene's church nun place, this person named Sister Deborah, played by Storm Reid, she decides to stow away, sneak out of the monastery, I think, and go help out Sister Irene. So there are two nuns now against one demon nun. Now, when they get there, they start investigating. They go to the church where this father died, and Sister Irene starts having visions. She starts having visions of the nun. She starts to kind of figure out what's going on. And she also realizes that her old friend Maurice, Frenchie, might be possessed by the original demon. Now, Frenchie is working at this boarding school, this all-female boarding school. He is doing maintenance there. He is helping out. He's made some friends with one of the students named Sophie, and Sophie's mother, who is also a teacher at the boarding school. It seems like there's some attraction between Maurice and Sophie's mother, and he really likes Sophie, so seems like it'll be a really great story. Well, not really, because Maurice is possessed by the demon Valak. He has moments where he looks like he is fighting her. He like will stand straight and like start to twitch like this because he's like fighting off the demon. Occasionally he does some terrible things because the demon is possessing him. And overall, he is here, but you don't really know why. When the priest recruited Sister Irene, there had been a series of strange murders that started from Romania and had gone east across and had gone west across Europe until we got to France. And each of those was a strange religious type murder where a nun or priest committed some sort of like suicide-ish harm, or where a priest or a nun died. And it seems like this entity is going across Europe. Well, that entity was Maurice. He was going across Europe. You don't really know why until later, but wherever he went, someone died. Now, that whole like traveling across Europe thing, it felt like a nice startup, but one thing that was weird is like Maurice seems to already be kind of implanted in this boarding school. He knows the teacher, he knows Sophie, he seems to be very good friends with her. He like treats her almost like a surrogate daughter. That would be strange if Maurice had just arrived here. Now, I don't know, they didn't say how long he'd been there, but if this entity was going across Europe, it seems like he would have probably just arrived. And it was weird that he was already like integrated into this whole family, this whole place. So with Maurice at the boarding school, some strange and horrible things start to happen. But remember, also, Sister Irene and Sister Deborah are investigating this whole thing. Now, they go to Tarascon, France, where that priest was kind of killed and immolated. And while they're there, they went into one of the altar boys who was there and observed the whole thing. Now, he doesn't say much, but he does give them the father's rosary. He stole it from him. I don't really know if it was like a memento or if he was trying to sell it. Who knows? But he gives her the rosary. The rosary has this strange crest on it, and that crest causes Sister Irene and Sister Deborah to go to the Catholic archives in France because they want to investigate what this crest is. When they get to the archives, they recognize that this crest on the rosary is similar to another symbol they saw during these murders, and one of the other people that was murdered also had a similar crest on their rosary, and they find out it is a family crest. Now, who is this family? Well, it is the family that is descended from this person named Saint Lucy, who is the patron saint of the blind, apparently. I don't know if this is true in all Catholic dogma. This is at least what this is in the movie. She was killed by pagans, and when she was killed, her eyes were gouged out. Now, not really great for her, but they made her a saint, and her eyes that were gouged out are a holy relic. It seems like this demon is searching out descendants of that family and killing them, apparently trying to find the eyes. Now, it never really, the demon doesn't ever ask anyone that it kills, like, where are the eyes? And you don't really get any hint of this, but it seems like the demon thinks that by killing them, perhaps it's going to get her closer to these eyes of Saint Lucy. Now, why would the demon want that? Well, the archivist has an idea, right? I guess the archivist just knows a lot. It says that a demon used to be an angel and now it's fallen. And so it has lost that like angelic power. And so maybe it wants the eyes to regain that kind of holy power and become like a super demon. I mean, the Valak seems to have a decent amount of power. I mean, it can like possess people, it can use telekinesis to throw people, it can like just slaughter people left and right, it has super scary powers, it can like make you really, really scared, it can like revive dead things. It seems to be very powerful, but I guess with these eyes, it'll be even more powerful. And wouldn't you know it, the archivist also knows exactly where the eyes are. They apparently have been tracking all these holy relics, and the eyes are buried in this cathedral named St. Mary's, which also happens to be the boarding school that Maurice is at. So it seems like the demon's path was kind of going in that direction and ended up at the same place where the eyes are. So with this new information, Sister Irene and Sister Deborah hurry over to St. Mary's, but when they get there, Maurice was already kind of starting to be overcome by the demon. He was dancing with Sophie. He was dancing with Sophie's mother. He collapsed. They're concerned, and a upside down cross like appeared on Maurice's neck. Not a great sign. And also, a picture of the demon nun appeared in that room. So, not good signs. The demon nun comes out. Both Sophie and her mother run away from Maurice, like scared, as they should be. And as they're running, wouldn't you know it, then Sister Irene and Sister Deborah appear in the hallway. They got there just at that time. They see Maurice. Maurice recognizes Sister Irene. It should be a nice reunion, but no, he's possessed by a demon. So he goes like, hello, sister, in this like demon face, like, hello, sister. And that is when he then punches Irene. She like goes up against the wall, breaks a window, falls down. She's very hurt, but she tells him to stop. She doesn't want him to get the relic. And as she is distracting him using her holy powers, Sister Deborah, who's a little more practical, grabs a stick and whacks him on the back of the head. Maurice falls over. They tie him up and they start looking for the relic. Now, where are they going to find the relic? They say, you know what? This family must have had a way to communicate with each other where the relic is, I guess. And Sophie remembers this little game that the kids play where there's a stained glass window with a goat on it. And at certain times of the day, the light shines through just at the right angle, I guess, to have that goat's eye turn red. And when the kids were saying, like, that is the devil looking at you, you can't avert your gaze. But Sister Irene thinks, you know what? I wonder if that is a sign. So they shine a light through the window at just the right angle. The goat's eye turns red and it becomes like a laser pointer, essentially pointing to a spot in the cathedral. They pull up that cobblestone dig and they find the relic. Everything's great. They've got the relic. Unfortunately, that stained glass window, the goat has disappeared. So that goat decides to apparently terrorize some other people in St. Mary's. There's a whole group of girls that are, I think they're sleeping. They hear something moving around. They hear something knocking. And all of a sudden they see this like evil goat person. It looks pretty silly. It also felt very unnecessary. Now you have this new threat that just is kind of like harassing the people. It really looked kind of like the demon dog version in Bram Stoker's Dracula when he turns into like this like wolf human dog hybrid. The goat thing looked like that except with horns. It started terrorizing these girls. They were running away. That was kind of a distraction. The main course is Maurice and the demon Valak against Sister Irene, Sister Deborah, and Sophie. Remember, Sister Irene and Deborah and Sophie were all trying to find the eyes. Now, they were able to find it, but when they do, Maurice appears. He was able to get free of the bonds. He was able to get free of the chains and ropes that they tied him up, and he starts attacking them. So Sophie grabs the eyes, runs from Maurice. She hides. Some chaos happens. Eventually, Sophie gives the eyes back to Sister Irene, and she uses them to stop Maurice, to like use this powerful relic. And the relic is like in this round case. And when she's using it, it like shines gold, but it like doesn't like leave the case. Only this little like ring around the top shines. It looks kind of like an Amazon Echo Dot that is lit up. So she uses that to stop Maurice, and this causes him great pain because he's possessed, and this is a powerful relic. He eventually collapses. Is he dead? He looks kind of dead. There's like blood coming from his eyes. He's not dead. He's still alive. When they go and check on him, he grabs the eyes. Now the nun appears. She like, I guess, consumes the eyes. They like disappear from the case and appear in her eyes. Her eyes actually look kind of the same. She's always had these like glowing gold eyes. Now she has extra glowing gold eyes. She's got the relic. She's super powerful. Not going to be good for anyone. And when this happens, the nun also like rises up from the ground, like she grows. So she is like now 12 feet tall, and she has this like really long robe on. It looks kind of like, so a while ago I went to a Marilyn Manson concert, and partway through the show he had this like long robe dressing on, and there was a platform under him, and he rose up way above the crowd, and the dress like spewed down, and it looked like he was just like 18 feet tall. That's kind of what this looked like. And the nun also kind of looks like Marilyn Manson. So maybe they were inspired by it. I don't know. But while the nun is doing this, she then uses her powers to like telekinetically lift Sister Irene and set her on fire. And while she's up here, while she's starting to burn, she remembers her mother, who had visions like Sister Irene, but was sent away to an asylum by her dad. Now, you hear that Sister Irene has the same eyes that her mother had. And her mother had these really striking eyes. And then you also see a vision of St. Lucy, who, remember, she was killed by pagans. They originally tried to set her on fire. She didn't burn. It was a miracle. And then they killed her and cut out her eyes. Now, you get the connection here that maybe Sister Irene is a descendant of St. Lucy, because they talk about her eyes, how she got her eyes from her mother. She sees St. Lucy. She sees like the power that St. Lucy had. And Sister Irene stops burning. So it seems like Sister Irene is in this line of descendants of St. Lucy, and she is now using that power to stop herself from burning. When Sister Irene stops burning, she like falls to the ground. Valak calls up like spikes, I guess, spikes or wood splinters to surround everyone, to surround Sister Irene, to surround Deborah, and to surround Sophie. They're all trapped. What are they going to do? Valak is like super powerful. Stuff is exploding. They're in this like monastery's basement where there's all this wine. During this time, during this chaos, Sister Irene turns to Sister Deborah and says, "Will you pray with me?" And they start praying. They start praying like the communion prayer. And earlier in the movie, there was a discussion between Sister Irene and Sister Deborah about how during communion, the belief of the Catholic system is that the wine turns into the blood of Jesus. And Sister Deborah was like, "That's silly." And Sister Irene's like, "Well, you just have to have faith. Like, your faith makes it happen." So now, when they're surrounded by wine, Sister Irene asks Sister Deborah to pray with her. They do. They pray. They pray this like communion prayer. The wine casks explode. Apparently, their prayer turns all this wine, a ton of wine, into the blood of God. The wine all hits the nun. The nun like starts erupting in flames and screaming and burning. Not good for her. And remember, the original nun ended when they used a relic that was supposed to have the blood of Jesus, and Sister Irene spit that blood onto the nun, killing the nun in that instance. Well, it seems like now they have new blood. That new wine blood gets all over the nun. The nun burns. The nun collapses. It also gets over Maurice, and it seems to burn away any of this infection, any of this possession. And that's how they prevail. Maurice wakes up. He sees Sister Irene. He says, "You saved me," which is kind of poetic because Maurice saves Sister Irene in the first one, and Sister Irene thinks that that is the instance when Maurice then became possessed by Valak, this like snake. You see a scene where a snake like goes down Maurice's throat, and it seems like that is when Maurice is possessed by Valak. So now Sister Irene saved him, and she banished Valak. So all is well that ends well. Maurice sees Sophie. Maurice sees Sophie's mother. He apologizes to them. They seem to forgive him. Everyone walks away. Everyone seems happy. Sister Irene is left standing there. She watches them go, holding this rosary. And that's it. That's the end of the movie. You don't get like any additional closure with Sister Irene. You don't get like an additional scene with the Vatican. You just see Maurice, Sophie, and Sophie's mother walk away, and Sister Irene standing there with the rosary. There's also a stinger. There's also a stinger during the credits. During the credits, you see the Warrens' house. There's a phone call. Ed Warren picks it up. His wife, Lorraine, is also there. It's Father Gordon. He says it's an emergency. And Ed Warren says, "Yes, Father, how can we help?" So I don't know if they're implying that that they're going to kind of tie this nun storyline, this other storyline, into the next Conjuring movie, or if they're drawing like a conclusion that because of this incident, they called in the Warrens to go and investigate. Maybe that's how they eventually got that nun painting that was hanging in their house in, I think, the Annabelle movies. It's probably also in the Conjuring. Anyways, they do include that. They do include that scene as a stinger to kind of tie it all together. But again, that is the Nun 2. Like I said, I didn't love it as much as I was expecting to. I was hoping I would like it a lot more. It is not a bad horror movie. It's got some decent effects. It's got some really good sound. It's well shot. But to me, the story and kind of like the actual nun villain just didn't really do it for me. So that's my take. If you do go see it, let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you liked and you didn't. Let me know what I got right and wrong. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.